NFL podcast. Launched water balloons at bathing beauties in large fields.
Welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. Wait, what is going on with the intros lately?
They're a little off. We can just ignore them at this point when we don't even know what they're talking about.
No, I think you've forgotten what that's about. I was telling you about the gigantic slingshot that some gentleman used to use on a college campus, where there were people sunbathing like 400 yards away, and you put the water balloons in it, and they were pelting parents on a parents' weekend and people sunbathing with these balloons. So totally factual drop right there by Money. Thank you, Money.
Somehow we ended up back in Mark's 1992 college experience again. Something we can't escape somehow. Yes, this is the Around the NFL podcast presented by the United States Marine Corps. I am Dan Hansis. I am joined by, as you've already heard, two great heroes, Mark Sessler, Greg Rosenthal. What is up, boys?
I'm really into this week 14 slate. I had to do an article on NFL.com, the debrief, looking at the 10 biggest games the rest of the year. This slate this week, the primetime games, it's the best primetime slate all year. But overall, it's the best group of games. The next 3 weeks are going to be a little bit of a letdown compared to what week 14 gives us.
I mean, way to sell the rest of the season there. Should I just?
I mean, it'll be fun. I'm just saying, this is it. Get ready. Get ready. That's all.
Well, this makes sense. We've done this long enough where when you get to week 15, 16, 17, there's going to be some dogs, because with each passing week, naturally, more and more teams are playing, essentially looking ahead to 2021. That's just the way this works. But you're right. This has some really saucy games this week. Looking forward to it. We're going to go through each one, as we always do, draft style. But before we get to the draft, let's get through the primetime games, because we got a killer primetime slate, starting with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. And Mark, I don't want to say the Bills eclipse the Steelers after what we saw in week 13, because that would be recency bias and that wouldn't be fair. However, if there was ever a time not to catch the Bills, I feel like this is it for the Steelers, because the Steelers are in a little bit of a funk, obviously, coming off their first loss, but have not played well the last couple of weeks. And the Bills just looked like a world-beating team against the Niners, with Josh Allen just playing absolutely out of his mind.
I think it's well said, and it's okay to have a little recency bias, because you want to see teams peaking now, and that's the Buffalo Bills to me. I just think that Sean McDermott, he's just got this smooth leadership style. I look at Brian Daboll and what he and Josh Allen did. They're mind melding right now. It's a mental meshing. And I think that Brian Daboll heard all the flowery words from me and others about Kyle Shanahan before that Niners game, and he decided to conduct an orchestra of his own against the Niners. And I'm just watching Josh Allen in that game, and in general, sort of just this complete calm, almost as if he's, meditating in the middle of the forest. I think this is a team right now that is in sync, and Pittsburgh is not right now. This is a Buffalo team that I think is peaking and at the right time, so I would be very concerned for the Steelers.
Is he going to lock it up?
I have another lock coming, but I feel very good about Buffalo. I think that you and I feel the same way. I don't know how Greg feels.
Okay.
I think it's a tough one. I do like the idea, Mark. Are you suggesting that Brian Daboll was thinking of going into San Francisco with a bunch of vanilla, run, pass, let's just get through this game? But then he heard Sessler talking about him and talking about Shanahan. He was like, I guess I'm going to bring out the big guns.
Yeah, I just accredit it to that. So probably not factual.
I like this matchup for Pittsburgh, though. I really do. It kind of, when you're thinking about how you want to predict games, what do you put more stock into, the whole season or the last 2 weeks? The last 2 weeks, the Bills have been the better team. It's been the best defense they've had all year. But I think when you look at what Pittsburgh does well in terms of their defensive line against this Bills offensive line, which I think is their biggest problem, I think they match up well. And then you think about what Pittsburgh does on offense. They dink and dunk down the field, and they're a team that Buffalo is defensively that'll let you do that. They're not going to come after you. So I think the matchup after a loss does not set up that poorly for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and there's a reason Mike Tomlin has been at 500 or better with Super Bowl appearances during his long run in Pittsburgh, because he's a good coach and it's a great staff, and that, I would think, serves as a bit of a wake-up call. What happened on Monday, and Greg, I think you and I are on the same page with the idea that it's possible that the Steelers, that loss will help them, and you'll see some of this tightness disappear that we saw. All the drops, unbelievable how many drops. But then you think about maybe the reason we're seeing so many more drops from this particular team is because all they do is pass the ball, because they can't run it. It's been a real mess. James Conner has missed the last 2 games on the COVID-19 list, and they have not had a 100-yard game since week 6. They had 3 in the first 5 games. So there was great balance to begin the season, but Benny Snell has not picked up the pace. He is averaging about 3 yards a carry, and it's putting Pittsburgh in a situation where Ben has to throw it over and over and over again, and he's throwing short more than ever.
Yeah, it's not what you think of Steelers football. So I'm with you on that. The lack of balance last week against Washington, well, I would put it in the category of disturbing. But how about a little appreciation for Cole Beasley, who right now has more yards than A.J. Brown. He has more receptions than DK Metcalf and more 100-yard games than Tyreek Hill. I thought he was fascinating against the Niners. And this wide receiving group, I think they can do damage. This may be the AFC's best group of wide receivers.
It's weird that Pittsburgh and Buffalo are playing, and Buffalo is clearly the pass-first team. Like, if you trust that defense matters, it's Pittsburgh. If you trust that the passing game, which is what I usually trust, matters more, it's obviously Pittsburgh. Beasley's great, but to see the buy-in with Stephon Diggs blocking on the goal line and making ridiculous catches, it all, like, lines up because Diggs is number one. I just think this matchup is as good as the Bills have faced. If you look at the defenses they've faced this year, it's a pretty tough slate, and it's so big for home field advantage for Pittsburgh, and it's big for the AFC East for Buffalo. It's kind of like a which way are these two teams going to go down the stretch?
2 notes on the Steelers defense. They have 3 of the top 5 pass rushers in terms of QB pressures this season, but they just lost one of them. Bud Dupree in week 12 went out with the ACL. Obviously, that's an issue. And TJ Watt, he should be the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year at this point. He leads the league in sacks, QB hits, tackles for loss. He is just doing it all. And I never thought this would happen. And maybe it's not there. Maybe we're not there yet. But TJ Watt and JJ Watt at his peak was a dominant player. One of the most dominant players on defense we've seen in the last 20 years. TJ Watt is starting to knock on the door of entering that stratosphere. Some good, pretty good bloodline there in the Watt family.
Nice genes.
Two brothers winning Defensive Player of the Year. Like, it's outrageous. Poor Derek Watt. He's like, he should be feeling great about himself. He's having a nice NFL career. What are the odds? And his brothers are just like making him look like chopped liver.
On the positive end, he doesn't need to pay for an Airbnb. He just goes to JJ's log cabin, tosses cornhole, has a couple brews, takes his girlfriends there, and life's not so bad for him either.
A solid benefit right there.
Let's pick this game real quick.
I'm taking the Steelers. I think they bounce back.
You know what? I'm going Buffalo, 23-21. A lot of people will be agitated with the Steelers, and the Steelers fans are a very agitated group right now. They'll get back on track, but I believe in Buffalo.
All right, I think this is going to be one of the games of the year. Let's say Steelers by a field goal, 31-28. We're just getting started. We'll be right back. All right, let's now transition to the other big primetime matchup this week, and it's a gorgeous one. The Baltimore Ravens traveling to Cleveland to face the Browns. Ravens 7-5, Browns 9-3, and knocking on the door their first double-digit win season in a dozen years. And I'll start this way, Mark. Do you think, let's remember what happened week one. It was a blowout. The Ravens destroyed the Browns 38-6. And you thought it was more of the same from both teams. It hasn't played out that way. Do you think we're seeing two very different teams now, 13 weeks later?
I do, especially on the Cleveland side, that I think that, you're able to look at the Browns and say, what is their identity? It's easy to see. I mean, that's not true of almost every other Browns team this century. And I don't think that was super clear in week one. To me, I think the Cleveland Browns experience this year is a cleansing of some sorts. I mean, they've been through so much, and the Ravens were a team pulled from their belly and left Cleveland sort of dead, like the alien coming out of Sigourney Weaver and other people in that show. It wasn't Sigourney, but it's like Alien. That's how it feels to me with the Cleveland
movie,
Browns.
Technically,
but movie.
Alien. Well, look, here's the thing: the Titans game, I think, changed perceptions. But you have to deal with the Baltimore Ravens if you're Cleveland. This is a huge game for who they are, because if you go and get stamped, I think a lot of people will look at Cleveland again and say, close, not close enough. And it starts with stopping the run. I look at someone like Sheldon Richardson last week, what he did to Derrick Henry on those first two drives, stopping him on 4th and 1, causing a fumble on the next drive. That threw Tennessee completely out of orbit. If you can get plays like that against this running game and be as physical as Baltimore, something the Browns have not been in the 2000s at all, that would be the formula to shaking them up, roughing them up, and being their equal.
I'm so excited about it. This is my game of the year. The rest of the way. I'm usually not into just hashtag and narratives, but if the Browns lose this game, they're kind of still the little brothers. Ravens Browns should be a great rivalry. Partly because of bad reasons, because of what Mark said, that they ripped, they broke poor Mark Sessler's heart and a lot of other Browns fans by leaving town. And they've never had a meaningful December game between these two teams where they're both good. The closest thing I have is they were both 7-7 in 2002, and the Browns ended up making the playoffs that year. That's the closest we get, but these teams are better. And my head says actually the Browns have more going on with them right now. It's AFC North. It's two great running teams. It's two teams I think you can attack the other one's defense on the ground. So it's just as perfect as it could possibly be. And you're not going to slay dragons in week 14. But Mark, wouldn't it be good to just knock the Ravens out of playoff position right now? I mean, it'd be a little bit of payback.
I think they will. Be a magnificent thing, right, Mark?
Yeah, I think they will slay dragons. And you know what? I have in our lock world, I've gone with my head all season long, and I'm one game behind Greg. But I do think that the Cleveland Browns are the equal of the Baltimore Ravens. And so I am, without too much hesitation, I'm going to go for it. I'm locking up the Cleveland Browns. Let's do it.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
Wow. That's what I'm talking about, Mark Sessler. I love it. The Browns obviously looked awesome in the first half against the Titans. A big part of that obviously was Baker just playing out of his mind and a clean pocket and spotting receivers and throwing it right on the money. The Browns have allowed only 6 sacks since week 7. And they've only allowed 13 QB hits since week 7. So they're protecting Mayfield. And when you do, I think that sets them up very well. On the other side, the Ravens only have 6 sacks in the last 6 games. So this could be set up well for Baker to stay hot. I want to see that. I want to make sure that this isn't a one-off monster performance in the first 2 quarters against the Titans. And there's the other side of it here, boys. And listen, on Tuesday's podcast, I did say that the Ravens were going to win out. I said it. I said it before they played the Cowboys, and we saw what happened that night. They absolutely looked like a dominant 300 rushing yards. They got their swagger back, and I think for that reason, the Browns are in a tough spot. I have to stick with my premonition when I looked in the future. And listen, Mark, you can't take it personal because this is bigger than both of us. It's bigger than anything in Week 14. We got a certified lock-off because I got the Ravens continuing their playoff push and beating your Brownies spanking the heinies of the Brownies, and you'll be okay because you'll be 9-4 after this game. But this is Baltimore's time to rise, and I'm sticking with that.
I won't take it personally. You know, we're normally in our show by week 13, 14, 15, we're waving goodbye to Cleveland and wondering who they're going to hire as a coach. I understand they're gonna trip up at some point here. I like this lock-off, Dan, an honorable one.
Wow. The only thing I
honor.
disagree with what you said there, Dan, is that Mark will be okay if the Ravens win this game.
No,
He's
I won't
not
be
gonna
okay.
He's not going to be okay. I'd be a little worried. I don't know if I'm whether I'm impressed or worried about the Ravens that they against the Cowboys, that their defensive line doesn't look great. There's certain issues, but Lamar just kind of took over. The thing that would scare me the most is like all the honking Lamar's doing. He's seeing J.K. Dobbins running up the field, and you can hear him because he has the mic on, and he's just going crazy. That it's those first round picks from 2018. Can Lamar just take over the game and just run like crazy and break Cleveland's heart by his like force of will? Because otherwise, I think Cleveland might have the better team right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Lamar scoring that long touchdown run, getting back on the same page with Hollywood Brown a little bit. Mark Andrews, I believe, is going to come off COVID here, the COVID list, and that's a huge addition. It just seems like things are going to come together here for the Ravens. So that's why I feel good about this. And Greg, a little bit of pressure on you because what an excellent job by both Mark and myself locking up a very close, narrow game. Don't even think about some Saints lock or anything. We need you to bring it this week.
No, you're not going to pressure me to move off my pick. Nice try, though.
What?
It's called honor, Greg.
We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. All right, with the primetime games out of the way, let's now dig into our draft. And Greg Rosenthal, congratulations. You have the first overall pick. What do you got?
It was a tough one this week. So many good options, but I am going Chiefs, Dolphins early. The Tony Romo game. Romo is the ultimate tiebreaker. Dan, I know you were trying to guess where I was going. Is that what you got?
I thought you were going with a different game and coming back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I can't come back because the TV show will be over, and I got to make sure I watch this Brian Flores team. I like what I saw out of Tua Tagovailoa last week against the Bengals. I know it was a quiet game overall, but if you saw what he did in the second half with the up-tempo offense, I think that was the best half of football he played the entire year. You saw a little more of what they did at Alabama. You saw some empty sets. You saw the hurry-up, and it's tough. being asked to do a lot. It's not a great offensive line. They're banged up. They've got 3 rookies starting for them right now. They're counting on Lynn Bowden to come off their bench and make plays. Myles Gaskin's back in the lineup, and he really helps them out. Jakeem Grant's a big part of this team. It's not the most talented offense in the world, and so I like that they're slowly building them up, and I think Brian Flores and Tua Tagovailoa can make this entertaining. I want to hear what Tony Romo's saying, so that's why I'm watching it.
Well, I'm genuinely annoyed. This was the game that I wanted. Nice work, Greg. I think this matchup is as intriguing as anything out there this week. The Dolphins, to me, they are adventurers. They are up for anything. I just think this is a very unified club.
I don't know what that means. What do you mean? What do you mean by they're up for anything?
I think they just have this. There's this energy to them where I have no idea what their ceiling is and who they can beat, and no one has put much heat on Patrick Mahomes. Can this defense that's allowing only 14.5 points a week do it? My concern is if they get into some sort of a track meet, I don't know if this Dolphins offense can catch up. They've scored over 30 points once in the past 7 games. The offense is my concern, but they find so many different ways to affect the enemy that I just trust them to play a complete game. I really do. And they do a nice job of forcing quarterbacks into their second reads. Can they do it here against Patrick Mahomes? Very few can, but I think the Dolphins are a different type of team, and I trust them with Brian Flores to coach this thing up.
So one of your reasons why you believe the Dolphins can hang in this game is that if you force Patrick Mahomes into his second read, that there's going to be trouble. Patrick Mahomes eats that up. He doesn't care about going through progressions. He's Patrick Mahomes, and he's playing at an insane level. This isn't a lockable game, I don't think, and I've already locked anyway. But here's the thing. I never have been all the way in on the Dolphins. I think it's clear if you've been listening to this podcast. I watched their game against Cincinnati. And again, it's the Bengals, and I saw a team that did not look very good at all in the first half. Turned it on in the second half. Give them credit for that, closing out that game. But 19-7 over Cincinnati doesn't fill me with hope that they're now going to charge into a game with the champs and light them up. And I think when you look at the playoff picture of the AFC, it just seems to me that Miami's going to be on the wrong side of this. Their final 4 opponents are a combined 33-15 this season. That's almost a 700 winning percentage. So you've got to steal one of these games where you're a big underdog. I just think it's too tall of a task to ask to happen at the hands of the Chiefs.
I am not saying that because Patrick Mahomes has to go to his second read that the Dolphins are going to win this because of that alone. That's not my top bullet point. But I am just saying that I think they're a very complete
your
team.
Second bullet point.
I love the challenge of it. I don't think that they're the better team, but I think that they can do weird things to offenses. We've seen it. We've seen it, and I think that they can do something to Kansas City that other teams have not. And we'll find out if I'm wrong. No one will remember a single thing I've said here.
No, this is a good setup for you, because if the Chiefs do their Chiefs thing, you're absolutely right. But if the Dolphins do step up, Mark, you look like a genius. The Dolphins have the 3rd highest blitz rate in the league. This is another part of this. So the Dolphins love to blitz. That's a big part of their scheme and how they've flummoxed certain quarterbacks this year. But no one devours the blitz like Patrick Mahomes, who has 12 touchdowns and no picks and a 140 passer rating against blitzing this year. It's just it's very hard, and I commend you, Mark, to get behind the team that's playing the Chiefs in general.
Well, look, what is the Chiefs thing, though? It's not winning games by a lot. They've 4 straight weeks they've been in close games. It's not running the ball. They're one of the worst in short yardage in the league. I'm waiting for them to steamroll an opponent. I think there's some reason for the Dolphins defense to have confidence because of what Brian Flores has done against Patrick Mahomes in the past. The Patriots defense did a good job relatively putting the clamps on him during his MVP season 2018. The Patriots defense this year, which has a lot of similarities but not as good as Miami, did a pretty good job against Patrick Mahomes. They can keep it close. This Dolphins team, don't give up on them, Dan Hansis. Come on.
I'm not giving up on them. They could lose out, and it's still a season where you feel good about.
Win a game by 2 scores, Chiefs. Win a game by 2 scores. How about that? Do that once.
All right. I think they will. How about that? All right. Let's move on. Now the old Zeuser picks, and I've just been happy with my drafts all season long. I just have to be honest with you.
You've been doing a great job.
When it comes up, I end up picking a game that's great. And I thought, Greg, you were going Indy Vegas with the second overall pick. And so So I will run to the podium and draft that game. It's a playoff game. How about that? I like this. The Raiders need to win this game to stay alive in the AFC playoff race. And the Colts, maybe it's not that dire for them because they are in a division showdown right now with the Titans. But it's a huge game for them as well. Right now, this is the 7th and 8th seed in the AFC playoffs squaring off. And two teams that were very fortunate last week. And everyone is hung up and killing the Raiders for what happened against the Jets and getting this miracle play, obviously, that got Greg Williams fired. They needed a miracle to win the game in the final seconds to avoid an embarrassing loss. Oh, but hey, guess what? There's another team that fits that exact description. It's the Indianapolis Colts, who had a 6-point lead with Deshaun Watson at the 2-yard line going in for the game-winning score, and the damn center fires the ball at his shins for a miracle fumble recovery for the Colts. Otherwise, the Colts are coming off a bad loss, and people are talking about that. So I'm not going crazy about the Raiders. Obviously, my faith is shaken over the last 2 weeks. I was a big Raiders booster on this podcast. I understand now that it could all go south after what happened against the Jets. But to pencil in the Colts as a team that will roll over the collapsing Raiders, I think that's a bit rich.
I don't question that. These two teams are very even, and players matter. And the Raiders are getting back 3 of their best players. Trent Brown, their right tackle, has been out for most of the season. Jonathan Abram wasn't out there against the Jets, and then Josh Jacobs. It's like teams can only take so many hits. That's absolutely huge. It kind of gets me to the point of how much do defenses matter? The whole thing like running backs don't matter. Well, how much do defenses matter? And because to me, if defenses matter at all, like if you have to be above a certain point, then the Raiders are just a house of cards that's going to fall apart. But if you can just survive with like a lousy defense, which they've been all year, especially when playing a team like the Colts, then they'll be okay. The Colts are just a different team when DeForest Buckner's on the field. You saw that last week, and they are a much more complete team than the Raiders.
Well, I mean, for me, I think it's huge to get these guys back for the Raiders. They were missing their identity on offense without Josh Jacobs to some degree. But Derek Carr mentioned how they didn't practice well before the Falcons game. I wonder how they practiced before the Jets game. I mean, the Jets opened up with a 12-play, 74-yard touchdown drive. They scored, they ran for over 200 yards on the day. That's an aberration for New York, and that is, less of one for the Raiders, who have the least sacks in the NFL. So they can't rush the passer. So, Greg, to your point, I mean, most of these defenses in the NFL right now are solidly half-baked. But the Raiders one is a little extra on that front, and that's my area of concern. But I'm not all out on them. I think that they are a team that they've shown incredible fight at different times, getting healthy, getting some of these guys back. The Raiders are fighting for their season. If they lose this one, 538 puts them at a 24% chance of making the playoffs. So this is your year right here.
Yeah, they need to win, and I guess I'm going to go down with USS Gruden here if it comes to that, because it's a week-to-week league, and everyone thinks the Raiders are done now. And meanwhile, they did come off a win, and they're 7-5, and they're playing a Colts team that is not, far superior to them at home. I know home doesn't matter that much this year. I'm picking the Raiders. I think the Raiders win this game. Greg, I imagine you picked the Colts in your pick 'em column.
I did take them. I'm wondering, Mark, like, are the Colts a team that's down for anything like up for anything like the Dolphins? Does that mean like what you call them on Friday night and they're ready to go out? It's more like you're already in and they're
like, you want to go hiking
ready to
at 6 a.m.
whatever.
Like, well, I mean, down for anything.
Dan and I once went to a Super Bowl, I believe it was a Bud Light Super Bowl party where the tagline was up for anything, and we enjoyed ourselves. So the Dolphins, I enjoy the Dolphins. The Colts, I don't get that vibe from them. They're like, Midwestern. They're very like, let's do things by the book. Tough team, but not up for anything, no.
I remember vaguely there being like a rapper. Oh, Shaq was the musical guest at that particular Super Bowl party.
Yeah, there was a unicorn that they had fresh bowls of paint. We painted a statue of a unicorn. Other things happened.
All right. We'll be right back after this. Time now for Road to Victory, presented by the United States Marine Corps. Up next in the draft, Mark Sessler.
I don't think this is a game I would have picked a few weeks ago, but it's a game I'm picking right now. Arizona at the New York Giants. The frisky New York Giants. They kind of like the old lunch pail dudes. And I don't even know if children know what lunch pails are anymore. No one's carrying those things around at this point, but they are morphing into a tough team. And I love the idea of Kyler Murray in a tough spot here, having to show who he is and who this offense is. I mean, if you take away that 59-yard touchdown strike to Dan Arnold last week, he opened that half 2 for 11 for 14 yards. I know they got a little hotter down the stretch, but I'm a bit concerned about the Cardinals. You take away the Hail Mary against Buffalo, and they would have lost 5 in a row. They are in a position right here. We talked about the Raiders as a team that absolutely needs a win. How about the Cardinals? This was a quarterback talked about as an MVP candidate at the start of the year. This Giants defense is not going to allow you to walk over them. They made life very difficult last week, very difficult. And I think that they have a chance to do the same thing to the Cardinals. This is my NFC East team. I know that Greg is very high on Washington. For me, it's the Giants.
Well, I started thinking this week, Mark, we haven't done team of the Around the NFL podcast this year or in a few years. And I started thinking if we had to have one this year, I think it'd be Big Blue. If Chris Wesseling would allow it, I think it'd be the New York Football Giants.
Chris Wesseling will never allow a New York team to be the team of ATN. So you would have to go. But
Eli Manning's not there anymore. I would have been the same way. It doesn't matter.
There's some New York bias in there as well. He's fed up with the Northeast. That's part of that.
That might be it. But I've enjoyed watching this team all year. Their defense, they play hard. I'm excited that Daniel Jones is expected to be back. We don't know that for sure for this game, but that makes a big difference, and it gives them a chance. Their defense has gotten better as the season's gone along, and I kind of think about them like I think about the Dolphins and the Patriots. The more time that they have together and the more time that they know what all of their teammates are doing, because it's a complex defense, the better that they are, and they're definitely bigger and better than the sum of their parts. I think it's a really tough matchup for Kyler.
And I know there's a range of outcomes in the NFC where maybe even a 500 team could get that 7 seed. But even still, I think the Cardinals need to win this game to get their season back on track and just get out of this free fall. And Murray, over their last 3 games, and they've all been losses, averaging 60 fewer pass yards per game, almost 50 fewer rushing yards per game compared to the first 9 games of the season, which it tells you 2 things. He hasn't been the same player, and he was playing at an outstanding level before that. And that has been kind of my criticism of Arizona for the last month and a half. I think what we've seen is that this team can win games and compete for a division and get everyone excited when Kyler Murray is in a godlike state as a football player. But when he can't be that guy, and you can't ask a second-year player, unless it's Patrick Mahomes, to consistently be that guy, this is just an average team that needs help on both sides of the ball, and they're at least a year away. So I think that's how they've been exposed at this point of the season. I don't see them pulling up the nose here. I think we're going in for a crash.
I mean, it makes sense that teams would gather knowledge on Kyler Murray, on guys like Lamar Jackson, who are so dangerous on the ground, and put every effort into not giving Kyler Murray those opportunities. And, we've talked about it on the show before that Kyler Murray is seeing it with defenses. They are forcing him to hand the ball off. They're not allowing him to just prance around 20, 30 yards of open field and do the damage he was doing.
Can I jump in on that, Mark?
You what?
Can I jump in on that? I'm hearing that a lot lately. Kyler Murray is not able to run anymore because defenses are now keyed in on that. Isn't that the whole Cliff Kingsbury thing, though? Wasn't that what they signed up for? That Cliff Kingsbury was supposed to be this gifted offensive mind in the Sean McVay mold. And meanwhile, all I'm reading about this week is how, Kyler Murray can't run anymore because defenses have adjusted their game. Oh, and by the way, DeAndre Hopkins, if you look at his route tree this year, it's kind of absurd that he's not being used the right way. One of the great wide receivers in the league. Cliff Kingsbury, do something. Help this team. They need you. They're going down in flames. Right. They need you to be the genius that you were sold as to everyone.
You're not playing Rice University right now, so the NFL coordinators catch up to this stuff, It's
a good stat by Steven Ruiz on For the Win, where basically they have the lowest amount of yards per attempt on RPOs in the entire league. That's a big-time disappointment.
And let me give a shout-out. to Leonard Williams, a former Jet who never reached his potential in New York, traded to the Giants for a third-round pick, a move that Dave Gettleman was laughed at over. He has been awesome this year. He has been an all-pro level talent when you look at his production, and it was never better than against the Seahawks. 2 sacks, 5 QB hits. The big cat. I'm happy for him. I hope he gets paid. We'll be right back after this.
All right, well, I'm going to go Washington at San Francisco. I don't think I'm surprising you guys here. A lot of elements that I like.
All right, Mark, it snakes to you, my friend.
All right, I'm going to go somewhere that it's not going to surprise you. I'm going to go Washington at San Francisco. This game is intriguing. Now, we've forked the Niners, and I do believe their season is done based on our actions there, Dan. But
Nailed it.
you know what I love about this season and the whole 12, 13 weeks of NFC East jokes that grew tired, that things change. And the NFC East suddenly is frisky, and it's the two teams no one thought about, the Giants and Washington. And what Washington did against Pittsburgh, that makes me a little concerned for Nick Mullins. You got Montez Sweat tipping balls all over the place, causing chaos. And I need to see a Niners team that gets out of the gate a little earlier than they did last week when they were ravished by the Bills. How about we get Deebo Samuel involved a little bit differently and earlier on here? And the running game, I don't know if we need 18 different people with carries here. Let's get someone hot and let's move on this thing. Washington, to me, is an incredibly resilient and strange team. I enjoy watching them. Honestly, I think this is the first time that I can really remember good energy around Washington. And I would say they should keep their weird name and keep their helmets. Don't go on this search committee to redo your identity. Keep this one. I enjoy it.
You know, I was thinking the same exact thing a couple days ago, that just through repetition now, Washington football team, it just kind of is a thing that it works for me as well. And I also, may I say that this is the second time this week, Mark, that your golden boy, Kyle Shanahan, you've just been levying criticism at him for his usage of certain players, and I'm here for it.
I mean, he knows more. He could tell you more in 30 seconds about football than I could tell you in 6 hours. So it's not really critique of him. I do have Raheem Mostert on my fantasy team. That could be part of my messaging.
There it is. That's the answer.
I almost feel like it's generous of you to say that it would take 6 hours for you to match him in 30 minutes or whatever. I feel like it might need more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I look at this game and I wonder if Washington can do it again. Okay, it's one thing. It was the game of the year for them. It was a magical moment. I truly believe I will remember that game forever. Washington, Pittsburgh. I think they will too. Beating the last unbeaten and Alex Smith, like that's a big deal. I'm not laughing. Think about how bad
it's the most Greg thing you've ever said. I will remember that game forever. And I believe
absolutely. You. On a Monday afternoon at 2:00 for Alex Smith to do that. Don't you think they will?
But you don't remember
Imagine
anything,
if the Jets
Greg.
knocked off the what's up?
But you don't remember anything. But you will remember this, and I believe it.
Yeah. I do remember football games, especially like where I was when I saw Cam Sims pulling that one-hander and a team without Antonio Gibson getting it done. I don't know if they do it again. I think this matchup is tricky, just the way that San Francisco runs their offense. Washington is not so much a team that's going to come after you and get a lot of blitzes and big stops. They really rely on the red zone defense and tackling, and this is one of the toughest teams to tackle, San Francisco. Ayuk, Mostert, Deebo. And defensively, San Francisco is kind of a coverage team that will take away the big plays. They don't have a great pass rush right now, but just because Washington won that one game, I don't think they're necessarily going to go steamroll on the other side of the country this week again.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a fine line here because you want to respect what Washington has managed the last few weeks, but also I'm with you. I think the reason, for instance, the Niners went in the tank on Monday or Tuesday or whatever day it was against Josh Allen was because once Josh Allen and Brian Daboll cracked the code of Robert Saleh and that defense, it became a situation where it was Nick Mullins versus Josh Allen in a shootout, and we know what's going to happen there. But in this situation, you know what's going to happen with Washington's offense. They are going to dink and dunk you. This is a team that when it's 3rd and 9, will throw it 4 yards. I mean, there's no way we're going to have a shootout and you're going to put Nick Mullins in that situation again. So then I feel like just the game script is going to be much better for San Francisco than it was. And even though, Mark, we did fork the Niners, which means they have no chance of making the postseason, we stand by it. I still think the Niners have a W here, and it's going to be at the expense of the W team.
Yeah, forking them doesn't mean that they're not going to, cause some chaos down the stretch. They are. That's who they are. And I know that Kyle Shanahan nobly would not mention this, but I think having to relocate to Arizona and, having to tell players you're not going to spend Christmas with your families, I think that took a toll against the Bills. I really do. I mean, these are human beings in a really weird 2020. Maybe they're a little bit more in a calm place, centered and together this game. I don't think they're going to go to sleep, though, Dan. You're right.
All right. Let's move on. The old Zeuser picks next. I picked one game that felt like a playoff game. My first pick, I have another one here. The Vikings at the Bucks. So, all right. So the Vikings on this podcast, we've been calling them the team of Zeus TL because I got behind them when they were 1-5, and now they're all the way back to 500. And right now where they sit is in the 7th and final playoff spot. That's all good. However, there are things about the Vikings the last couple of weeks that make me feel differently than I felt a month ago. And I don't necessarily think this is a team that is going to steamroll to that playoff spot. I think the Bucks are an opponent that could give them a lot of trouble coming off the bye. Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, hopefully they get on the same page, Byron Leftwich, and they have a game plan that is more tailored to what Brady can do. And I think that's the other big subplot here. One of the bigger or more interesting soap opera subplots of the rest of this regular season, boys, which is Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. Can they make this work? There's still so much to be settled, but if this team flames out, who knows what happens come January?
I love the Bucks in terms of that it's all or nothing. Like, I either think they're going to win 4 straight and steamroll everyone down the stretch, or it's going to implode. They don't make the playoffs, and you're right. Maybe Arians is the fall guy because Tom Brady's guaranteed that money. He's still throwing the ball pretty well. He's not going anywhere. I like this matchup for them, though, too, because you look at the Vikings. If they can't run with Dalvin Cook, what do they have? Not a lot. And I don't think you're going to be able to run against the Bucks. And then you look at the Vikings offensive line. I think they've been struggling lately. I don't trust their communication. And you got to play a Todd Bowles defense that gives you all sorts of looks, all sorts of problems. And that's why I feel good about the Bucks bouncing back. And I'm locking it up against the team of Zeus TL.
All right. I like that. That's a good pick. I think you're a little strong on the Bulls, Asante. This defense hasn't been quite what it was. And did you say if you take away Dalvin Cook, what are the Vikings at? What about Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen? Maybe the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver we have in our league.
They're asking Kirk to do all this 3rd and 13 stuff, and he's getting it done each and every week. But I don't think that works against Tampa.
I mean, they didn't throw a deep ball until the second half last week. I would maybe test this defense in that nature earlier on in this game, because it's not a great scenario for Dalvin Cook. I have to wonder if the Vikings, who the only teams that seem to impact negatively the Bucks, you have to be able to get to Tom Brady. That's an age-old. We know that whole situation, but they traded away Yannick Ngakoue when it felt like they were sort of selling the farm, and he still leads the team in sacks. He only played 6 games there. I do wonder if they regret that trade, because they are alive, but they can't rush the passer very well right now, and that's just a formula for them getting nipped in games. They seem to constantly be alive in the fourth quarter, but then too many X factors, ring in. So I would like to see Minnesota show up in this one. The Bucks, to me, I'm still trying to figure out who they are. I don't think that they're the sum of their parts on offense.
Does this qualify as the fallacy of the predetermined outcome? Because Ngakoue went to Baltimore, but now he's injured and is a reduced player. If he would have stayed in Minnesota, would his foot hurt? Someone's got to take me through the science on that.
The sliding doors.
Poor Ngakoue, I think if you do his record right now, is 3-10 on the year. He's played an extra game, and his teams keep losing. He trade him to Baltimore, and they start losing. It's not your fault, Yannick.
Don't tell Stephen A. Smith about that. It's going to lead to an epic rant against the poor man. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back. All right, let's check in on the lock of the week standings. The Zeuser gets back on the winning track, 8-5. Greg, 11-2. Mark right behind him at 10-3. Wes hanging in there at 8-5. And look, Erica gets a win, ending a long losing streak, 4-9. And just as it, as luck would have it, Erica deems it necessary to be on today's show, coming off a W. What's up, Ricky?
Yeah, it's going to be the greatest comeback in NFL history.
That would be incredible. I'm rooting for you. That would just be fun to track. All right, we have more games to get to. Let's go through the rest of the Week 14 slate, and let's do it with our speed round, starting with the New Orleans Saints at the Philadelphia Eagles. Man, this one got speed round. Sessler.
Jalen Hurts, Taysom Hill, what's not to like? This is one of the weirder quarterback matchups of the year. I am all in. I'm going to be watching this closely, my friends.
Yes, absolutely. Could be Taysom Hill's final start of the season. We'll see. Up next, the New York Jets at Seattle Seahawks. Sounds like a slaughter, Rosenthal.
Yeah, I think the Jets are catching the Seahawks in the wrong week here. I'd love to see a little Josh Gordon in this game eventually. If it's not this week, they need some diversity on their offense, but the Jets should be a nice little slump buster for them.
Josh Gordon, a former Baylor standout. Denzel Mims, another Baylor standout, not playing. He had to travel home and now is on the COVID-19 list. That's just doing that kind of year for the Jets. Up next, the Tennessee Titans at Jacksonville Jaguars. Mark, Gardner Minshew's like, hey, Doug, I want to play. Put me in, coach.
It's crazy that he's not playing, but I'll tell you someone who is. James Robinson has a chance to go over 1,000 yards on the ground. One of the better stories in the NFL. Jacksonville does know how to find these guys in the very, very late rounds.
He could go 1,500 scrimmage yards. It's an outrageous rookie season for an undrafted player. Up next, the Dallas Cowboys at Cincinnati Bengals. Greg.
Ooh, the revenge of Andy Dalton. Also the game I think that's on the schedule that I least want to watch yet in the 2020 season.
Sell it.
Bengals, Cowboys.
It's not right. I mean, hearing Troy Aikman on the verge of tears on national television in Week 13, I never want to see Troy like that again. Up next, Houston Texans at Chicago Bears. I'll take this one. All right, you get Deshaun Watson. That's what you get at this point. When you talk about Texans games, even when they're dog games like this, you still get to watch Deshaun Watson, who is having arguably the greatest season by a quarterback on a bad team. As for the Bears, not good. Not good at all. Up next, Denver Broncos at Carolina Panthers. Could be getting Christian McCaffrey back, Ricky Hollywood.
We're not sure about that because he is nursing a thigh injury now. So Denver's on the verge of its fourth losing season, and A.J. Boye suspended for PEDs, and the Panthers are dealing with their own COVID issues in the locker room over their bye week. That could still be lingering. Bradley Chubb and Malik Reed combining for 14 sacks and 21 tackles. Teddy Bridgewater's in for a big challenge this week.
Wow, Ricky comes prepared. How about this? I'll give you another one. Falcons at Chargers. Have fun with that one, Hollywood.
She's on the PEDs.
Oh my gosh. Falcons have allowed the second most passing yards per game and also the lowest interception percentages in the NFL. And Justin Herbert's smashing these rookie records, even though the Chargers haven't been on the right side of a winning season. This should be a get-right game after their really embarrassing 45-0 loss over the Pats.
Right. Finally, Packers at Lions. Nice job by Darrell Bell getting the win in his first job replacing Matt Patricia, but Aaron Rodgers gonna go nuts. We all know it, so let's not pretend he's not gonna throw for 4 more touchdowns and 374 yards, with Devontae Adams scoring twice. All right, thank you to everyone for watching this preview. Make sure to check out the Around the NFL podcast flagship program Sunday night, where we recap every game we just previewed. Till then,
45-0.